Oh my gosh, it's episode 177. I am so excited to be here. This is going to be a great show. Normally, we don't do very good shows, but this is going to be a great show because none other than my constant co host, Mark Zimmerman, is here. Mark, how's it going?
It's going great.
Mark,
LCS was pretty good this weekend actually.
yeah.
I had a lot of fun.
What did you enjoy about it?
That TLEG game specifically was just so fun. I love the multiple fights in different bases. Such a fun game.
Such a fun game. This is actually one. No, it is 177. People in the Twitch chat throwing me off. They're all saying I thought it was 178. They're trolling me. Well, either way, we'll talk more about this weekend. How have you been other than that? You've been looking at any of the E3 coverage?
Nope,
Well,
not
I
at
thought you
all.
got really excited about Elden Ring. You tweeted about it. Or
Oh well, I mean I didn't know that was even because of E3. I just saw that. I'm a huge E3 fan. I mean, Elden, fuck it, whatever, dude. Get me out of
Show's
here.
off to a great start. And our guest this week, he came on, I thought because of the new Sunday media policy, but actually, I don't know why. But Jensen is here. Jensen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. This
You're
is my first time here. I'm excited for this.
Thank you, thank you. Well, I'm glad you're excited about it because you asked me before the show how
What
long
is this?
how long am I on for? I've never done something like this. I dodged that question because I thought that Dodo would have told you that this is a 2 hour long show, and and I didn't want to answer that. So if you need to leave early, I understand. This is your day off, and I really appreciate you doing this. But it was in that moment that I discovered you did not know you had committed to a 2 hour show. So welcome to the show for
Yeah, I'm
as long as you feel like being here.
Thank you.
Um, well, maybe we'll front load Jensen related questions to the start of the show. Also, shout out to Alienware and Game Fuel for sponsoring the show. Always love them. We'll talk more about them as the show
We love
go-
Alienware here.
goes on. Exactly, exactly. No, but well, before we get into some calls, I mean, how's things been for you lately, Jensen?
Um, it's been interesting to say the least. A lot have happened, but we're moving forward. We're moving forward.
A positive way to say it. I mean, Jenkins looked pretty good, at least in one of the games this weekend. I think he particularly popped off. So, how's it been playing with him?
Yeah, no, he's a great guy, and yeah, I think he's really good. I think obviously the whole thing is like very weird, especially for the fans, and I think people probably downplay him because he is playing instead of Alphari, which everyone thinks is obviously the greatest or the best top laner in the league. So yeah, I mean he's good for sure.
Yeah. Oh,
On
go ahead, Mark.
Oh, I was going to follow up on the Alphari topic because, like you said, it's obviously weird for fans. What's the best way to do this? How should we get it out of the way? The Alphari discussion. Should we get a caller on
Well,
with
here's
it?
here's what I will say. So, I was super down to talk about all of the Alfari drama and poke Jensen about it until I saw that it sounds like he's going through some personal struggles based off of his tweets and the Team Liquid tweet. And so I think, look, I am super down to take calls about like uh, maybe the way in which TL communicated the stuff and maybe the sort of situation where Jenkins is in. Like, I don't think we should ignore the whole topic, but out of respect for whatever personal struggles that Alfari is going through right now, I'm not gonna like berate Jensen to reveal like a bunch of personal shit. I get that some people are gonna be like, "What the hell?" But I'm like, "Hey, I'd like to be a good human for at least this episode, so maybe we don't need to TMZ drama out like what's actually going on with Alfari." But
But
it
it'd be
sounds like
much
he's
better
fine.
for our viewership if that happened.
That's true. That's true. Sometimes I'm willing to make the trade on viewership for ethical reasons, I guess, and to avoid being like a drama alert type show. Anyway, but I do think we can talk about how this has affected the team and all that stuff. So I'm not afraid to jump into all of that. But Mark, I
Yeah, I
don't.
mean
Oh, go ahead, Jensen.
yeah, I was gonna say, I mean there's obviously some things I can talk about, but like you said, there is obviously the personal side of things that made things a bit more difficult. But yeah, I mean I'm not opposed to briefly talk about things, but
Yeah.
I'm just not gonna go into too many details on certain things about it.
Well, let me ask you then. What was it like for you being? You tweeted, I think, a everything is fine type meme or something like that around this time. What was it like for you being on the sidelines? There was a bunch of drama unfolding. At least the conversation online was unfolding.
Yeah, I mean, um, yeah, I mean, I thought it was a fitting tweet at the time. It was funny, to lighten the mood a bit. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. From the inside, it was okay. I guess it was a bit of a weird situation though, for sure.
Yeah.
It was kind of sudden, like just I think the timing of it just made everything seem a bit more extreme, um, than it maybe could have been.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, I
C9
think
kind of, it's funny because there's been so much focus on TL, and I think the major reason why that focus has been there is just because of the timing, the fact that there was one game, and then it was communicated the way it was, whereas like C9 basically did almost the same exact thing, and they were able. I mean, obviously there was a lot of what the hell is going on, but I don't think it sparked the same kind of reaction as we saw out of the TL stuff. So I think that's been a lesson for perhaps the way some of the stuff can be communicated in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
Mark, do you have on this topic? Do you have any questions before we get to callers about it?
Chick-fil-A or Chipotle?
Ooh,
Jensen.
I like Chick-fil-A more personally,
But I assume Jersey
Chipotle's
Mike's is better than all of them.
but Jersey Mike's is way better.
Yeah,
Wait, are you guys still sponsored by Jersey Mike's? I actually don't even know.
Yeah,
they
Oh.
are. They just did a subs for dubs thing because they went 2-1 this weekend. They got the 2-2, so they did a discount. This show should be sponsored by Jersey Mike's since we're talking about them right now. But yes, still sponsored by Jersey Mike's. I mean, the Alphari. I will say the Alphari tweet was very creative. It was crazy when all that stuff was happening on Hotline League last week, and we were getting to kind of live react to it. Mark, anything else?
Should I? I guess this is both for you and Jensen. Should I try and find someone with an Alphari take, or should we just leave that?
I think
As
as
it is
long
now.
as it's not going into the like, if it puts us in a situation where we have to talk about like what is going on behind the scenes with him, I think that's kind of like shady. But if it's just sort of like, hey, if Alphari doesn't come back, Team Liquid is going to end up 10th place, then I think that that's like a take that we could take, or maybe TL doesn't need Alphari, that type of stuff. I think keeping it about the game, his position, and the situation is good.
Yeah.
That seems fair, right? Less about the
yeah.
TMZ rumor stuff and more about the actual situation.
Okay.
Or about Jatt. We can take critical calls about Jatt. If I've seen some already.
Really? Where?
I don't know. Oh, not in the take, but in our Discord. But I just mean there was like a Reddit thread. Oh, it's the Solo interview where he said like if a coach gets to a place where they're benching a player, then that's a problem with the coach. That was kind of going down on the subreddit today, and I thought that was an interesting take.
All right. Well, how about we just get? I don't know. Is that a commonly shared sentiment amongst pro players that if the coaching staff can't handle a player to the point where they're getting benched, especially for someone as talented as Alphari, that is more of a failure of the coaching staff than it is the player? That's the out of context, haven't read the article headline on Reddit right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit weird because, from like an outsider perspective, you don't really know the context to everything. So it's a pretty dumb take, but ideally you do want like a star player or like, supposedly the best top lane in the league to be playing. But if you don't know what happened, then it's a pretty dumb take.
All right, someone clip it, put some brackets around it, that editorialized. Jensen said Solo is dumb. Put that one on.
Exactly. Yeah,
The brackets.
that's what I said.
The brackets are the number one tool for
the dots, the ellipses that just like contract a sentence and get rid of the words.
Yeah. Somebody in chat wrote "Scumbag Jatt," and my God, that is a
Ooh,
throwback.
that's a deep cut. Yeah.
Mark, were you even around when that happened? That started on
I wasn't
State
in
of
the
League,
scene.
I think.
I was like watching when Scumbag Jatt was a thing, but I wasn't.
Or I think we had Jatt on after. So this was like in 2011 or maybe early 2012. And I'm trying to remember how the Scumbag Jatt thing started. I actually don't remember what caused it. I do remember we had him on State of the League after the Scumbag Jatt thing occurred, and he was like juggling. Like apparently Jatt knows how to juggle, and so he was like juggling and doing all this stuff on the show. And people and because before then I don't think Jatt had done very much content, and so the first time people heard about them was because of this like scandal. People saying it was the WCG thing. That's right, because he was on Team Canada and Team USA, I think, because maybe he had dual citizenship. Yeah. Spawn's in the chat, and so that caused a bunch of controversy, and then people started calling him Scumbag Jatt. And I don't think he had done too much content before then, and so then he came on the show and was like, "Yeah, I'm a normal human being," and then people kind of got over it. But man, that's a throwback. They eliminated Chickstig Elo. So true, so true. Okay, I remember.
I haven't
Thank
heard
you,
any of
Spawn.
this.
This was before you. Well, I think you were probably playing over in Europe, and so this was maybe a.
This is like NA Season 1 lore.
Yeah, exactly. It's ancient.
You want to take some callers?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can also talk a little bit about like as we normally do what's been happening for the past week. So while I look up sort of the hottest things that have occurred this past week, so that we can get calls popping. How's it been for you transitioning back to playing in the studio, Jensen?
It's been okay. I will say though, I have one big criticism about the studio. It is really fucking cold. I can't feel my hands when I'm playing. Like it's just too cold. And yeah, maybe it's because of the lack of the fans being in the studio. So it's like this big space without a lot of people. But man, it's so cold to play. Like we need people. We need the people back.
I mean, there's got to be like a Nest thermostat somewhere that's dialed down to a certain number, and then they can bump it back up now that there's no fans there or something. But man, that sounds shitty.
Yeah, I mean, the reason we were given that they couldn't do it is because of all the machinery there. Like they just can't make it any warmer because it would be
Stuff
too
will start
dangerous or something.
overheating.
I don't know.
Maybe they
But
need
yeah.
to get space heaters or something for the stage.
Yeah, I
Do
mean,
you guys have-
that's what I'm saying.
Do you guys have like a winter apparel look you could go for too?
I don't think we do. We should have something though. I mean, I was thinking like maybe I could get like some sort of gloves to play with, but it would
Get
be
the,
so weird to play with gloves.
Like the hacker gloves from all those shitty '90s movies where it's just the fingertips out, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be something, right? Like I'm for sure gonna look into something like that because it's
Well, it's always
it's
been
hard to play.
cold. Is there a chance that you forgot how cold it was, and then you go back after a year and you're like, "Oh my god, this is fucking freezing."
Well, I mean, sometimes I could play with just t-shirt on, right? But I was
Yeah.
like playing with like an Under Armour, a jacket, and a t-shirt, and it was still too cold. My hands were still freezing, so
Jesus.
I
Okay.
I, I don't think I just forgot how cold it was. Yeah.
Okay.
Are you guys still allowed to have hand warmers, or is there like some COVID thing about that, or is that
No, there's hand warmers, so I'm
Okay.
just like constantly touching the hand warmers.
you should duct tape them to your hands? You don't
Honestly,
need your
yeah.
palms.
True.
Maybe Alienware can make a mouse for you guys. Okay.
Heated mouse.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Well, they
dumb.
have. I've seen mice before, not Alienware ones that have like cooling tech built into them, where there's like a little fan or something that blows onto your hand. So, I don't know. I think it'll be interesting. Honestly, there's not been too like this. There's not been too much outside of the game drama, right? Like there's no big topics other than I think the stuff that happened in the LCS, which were again some roster swaps, IMT bringing somebody up from Academy. I don't know if you've pulled TomShoe yet, Mark, but maybe this is his day to talk about Yasui, since for 3 years he's been on our show talking about how they need to give Yasui some time, and he got some time. So
Got shit on by Perks. I got actually a follow-up question. Does the fact that you guys are carrying over your spring split record into summer, does that even factor into like what it's like playing in summer at all, or is it just not even in your mind really?
Our coaching staff talk about it a lot. They like the stats, the record. But I mean, it's not something I really think about myself. But it does give you more like, I guess, room for disaster, I guess. I don't
Does
really know.
that experimenting or does
That's
that?
that's the
Experimenting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can kind of
a
tell
little
where
Freudian slip there.
Maybe not the right word, but
you can tell where TL's mindset is at right now.
You guys want to experiment in summer? It's like we just don't want to explode.
But yeah, I mean, it's for sure nice if you do go on a loss streak. Like you don't have to panic as much. I'm sure it sucks more for like teams like CLG and Golden Guardians, but I don't really think about it too much.
You know what's been interesting for me watching? I haven't enjoyed. It's a little annoying to see the score up there because as I'm watching, I'll look up at the score to see like, oh, how's this team doing? And because it's so padded from spring split, it's like hard for me. I'm like, wait, now I have to remember like how they did last weekend plus this week. And like on Sunday, I was looking at the score lines on the screen, and I was like trying to remember how well this team's been doing lately, which is a bit of a different situation. I don't know. It's fascinating.
Does it not show the summer stats?
It only shows total standing, which includes spring.
Oh.
So like next to
They-
Team Liquid, it'll say what Mark?
I was gonna say the actual records under like the sleds and stuff that you're talking about only shows overall record, but when we do standing graphics and stuff at like beginning of day and end of day,
I
we
did
put
see
summer
that.
record on there too.
I did see that. So at the end of the day, I was able to see the summer record, but it's just hard because sometimes I'm trying to remember like how's this team doing recently, and it's a little harder whenever you're just seeing that score line.
Yeah.
Raz says the standings literally show the summer split stats alone. Not true, Raz. Go turn it on. You'll see it in the overlay during any of the games. They show all of it together. I'm going to deduct points from you, Raz, but on lane by lane. All right. Why don't we get into some calls?
All right.
Mark's off to grab one. So you've probably never watched this show before, Jensen. So just so you know.
No, I have briefly seen it.
You've briefly seen it. Okay. Probably
Yes.
one of our calls popped off or something, and it was on Reddit. But either way, we get people that call in and have opinions.
Yep.
And then we react to
good.
them. It's very simple. While Mark is pulling somebody, thank you to...
We have a caller.
Oh, we have a caller. I'll get to that later. It's Parmenion?
Yes, Parmenion.
Parmenion. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from the island of Barbados.
From Barbados? Wait, that's sick.
Yes.
Wait, what can you tell us about the island of Barbados?
Well, what to tell you? It's hot all year round, beautiful beaches.
What is the ping like?
COVID's somewhat under control. What's the thing? Oh, 90.
Okay. All right. Well, what do you want to talk about on the show?
It's not that great. So I had a question for Jensen, mostly.
Yeah.
So as a player that has been at the top or close to the top of NA for the long time, what does he believe is the biggest factor holding back NA teams from doing super well in international competition? Because obviously there's been some isolated success, but I want to know what's his opinion. And what's the biggest thing that's really holding them back? Is it macro decision and knowledge? Do players from other regions just have better hands? Is it something in any infrastructure, the solo queue, competition in the LCS, or even something else?
I would say there's like a lot of contributing factors, but one thing I always feel when I go to like, Worlds or something and we start scrimming the other teams, always feels like we have to catch up to the other teams. Both a bit individually, but also just when it comes to macro and all that kind of thing. So I can't really say there's like one reason why NA sucks, but I will say playing with 60 ping really sucks.
So it sounds like you're saying so the ping sucks, but you're saying it's not just necessarily like your skill, it's also or the sort of mechanics that you're able to get from the solo queue. You also think it's things like the macro.
Yeah, I mean, to a lesser extent, right? Because when you look at LPL teams, I don't think they're like super like big macro players. A lot of it just comes from being able to be really good at snowballing and using their leads and just being, I guess, playing more together as a team when it comes to like snowballing the early game. That's how I view the LPL teams, at least. They don't have like super great mid-late game macro, but they're really, really good at creating leads in the early game and snowballing together. And I think that's something NA was really bad at in the past, but I think we've gotten better at it lately. But it's hard to really say why NA is worse. I mean, when I did, make it pretty far internationally a couple of times, and I never really felt like the gap was super big. You know, in the beginning, it's always really tough because we have to adapt and really understand stuff. I feel like when I play matchups in NA and I go internationally, it's like, wow, like this is not how I thought the matchup was gonna go. So there's a lot of adapting because the players they are better and understand the matchups better and everything. So there's a bit of learning when you go there, but also just yeah, I mean they play against better players throughout the year. I think I don't learn as much as playing solo queue here against the mid laners here as I would if I were to go to like China or Korea.
On that topic about like the deep runs that you did get at international competition, what about those teams allowed that to happen? Was it because you guys were able to adapt and learn these things? Was it because individually you just felt like everyone was playing super well? Was it like our team just happened to work really well together at this time? Like, what was it about those teams that allowed them to get further than most North American teams ever do?
It's hard to say. A lot of times when I would look at the other NA teams, they would kind of just play the same as they did in NA, not really progress. Whereas I felt like, with the teams when we went deep, we would learn a lot in our boot camps and really just take it from there. Because like there's no doubt in my mind if we were to go to an international team or international tournament and we would have 1 week of practice, like NA would just we would just be dead last almost every time, at least against the major regions. But it's just about learning really quick and really fast and trying to adapt as much as possible.
It's interesting. So you guys are at such a disadvantage when you get over there because you have to catch up. Whereas like the I guess the LPL or the LCK teams can just maybe the EU teams or LEC teams, whatever, whoever's best at that time, they can just focus on like figuring out what everybody else is doing in scrims or how the other regions play. I guess.
Yeah,
Is that fair?
Yeah, to an extent, but also it's just like I said, the players are, slightly better individually, so you need to play against them a bit and really understand what they're doing better or how they're playing the matchups better, and then learn from there. Because when I would talk to like some of the EU teams as well, like they would also just, get absolutely destroyed by the Chinese or Korean teams in the beginning, but then they would learn and get better. So I think it's just they play against better players and have better competition, and we just have to kind of learn as fast as we can and adapt. That's like one part of it, and then if you can keep up, then you can compete with them.
Well,
on
go ahead,
on
Mark.
the topic of like to the caller's point about like holding you back, biggest thing, ping is easily the worst feeling one because every time you go between like every day you're going to go between solo queue and scrims and you're going to feel that one. While that's probably the worst feeling, if you had like one thing you could fix, like the one change you could make, what would it be to like you think that would make the biggest impact and like that you don't have to cover so much ground when you go to these international competitions that would get you the closest if there's one thing you could change?
It would for sure be ping.
Yeah.
I think it's the most glaring issue, at least in my eyes. Like there's just certain champs I'm like, man, like I really don't want to play this on 50 or 60 ping. Like I'm just not gonna bother. Yeah.
Well, our Barbados friend, do you have anything else, or do you feel like that kind of covers your question?
I did just want to say quickly, like I have had that difference in ping before because I've gone to England and played on like 17 ping, and it felt like I was playing an entirely different game. Like obviously there's a huge difference between 19 and 17, but like skill shots, all that, it was completely different. Like I could play champions on 17 ping that it did not feel good to play over here. So I can kind of understand his point on that. But yeah, I think he basically answered what I really wanted to know. So thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah, of course. Anything you want to shout out before we say goodbye?
I'll just shout out my Clash team, GCG Gold Cup Gaming. That's something based on Barbados, in the horse racing arena, but it's just a name that we took. So yeah, and of course, shout outs to Game Fuel and Alienware that sponsor you and help you to keep bringing out this great content.
Hey, thanks so much for the call. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, have a good one. You know, I was competing in and won money last week in a
Oh,
Twitch
my God.
Rivals event, a Wild Rift Twitch Rivals event. No, Mark, I had a relevant. I'm gonna bring that up because it was relevant to the last caller whenever he gets back. Thank you to where are we? Backlog Bandit, Yoser, Clock Cruncher, who gave out 25 subs, and then I believe gave out an additional 10 later on, which is super nice. Moving up the sub list that I've currently recently installed underneath the stream. Zushi, Wild LOL for 31 months. 6'4 Dwarf, Magris, Cherry Lace for gifting 5 subs. Lesbomancy, Count001, and TomShoe for 31 months. Wait, Mark. Sorry, caller. Just hang in there for a second. Mark, the thing I brought up was going to be relevant. So I was competing in this Wild Rift tournament. Won money, by the way. And what was interesting is we had 2 players who were playing from Montreal, and they had 70 ping, and we had 19. And so and they usually get lower ping. So I'm almost certain that Wild Rift has what everyone
Regional
wants League of
servers.
Legends to have, which is you play on the server that is near you. And so it's crazy to me that they are able to do it in Wild Rift, but they're unable to do it in League of Legends itself.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I mean, I don't. Yeah, whatever. I go
RTK,
down that.
Human Boy, yes. What should I call you, by the way?
Just Human Boy.
Human Boy. Welcome back to the show. I recognize that name because it's a Total War. It's Warhammer, right?
Yes, it is.
Yes. Okay. Very good. Well, either way, what do you want to talk about on the show?
I want to talk about the Beastmen versus Lizardmen DLC. Oh wait, sorry, different show.
Yes, yeah, it's fair. It's fair. I actually, Kelby's very excited about it because he likes.
No one cares.
Lizardmen.
There's 2,000 people who don't know
Mark,
what you're talking about right
sometimes
now.
we talk about Stormlight. I should be able to have some sort of interaction with the caller about something that we both share. That's part of the reason the show exists. Anyway,
Yeah.
continue.
No, I'm just trolling. The real takes. I had 2 that Mark liked, but the first one we'll start off with is the mid meta. There's some flame on Reddit, and with some people I know that saying the mid meta sucks right now, but I actually think it's pretty hype. And we got to see some really fun games of Abbedagge and Jizuke popping off on Akali. Seen a ton of Tristana and Lucian that I still find really interesting. That there are some karmas coming out that are a little slower, but they provide for more interesting team comps than we've seen in a while. And it's just after watching 6 or 7 years of Orianna and Syndra, I really accept the change of pace.
Yeah.
Well, go
Should I-
ahead.
should I
Go ahead,
go, or-
Jensen.
Yeah, it's all you.
Yeah. This is a very Jensen thing. I'm not going to be able to comment on the mid meta.
Yeah, I mean, I agree the meta is more interesting, just both from a watching perspective and also playing perspective. But the thing that really sucks is that it doesn't really feel too much like mid lane anymore, in my opinion, because mid lane was always about mages. That's why, most people chose to be a mid laner is to play the mages, right? And the problem is the mage items are just too weak. So you could always play something like Orianna, Victor, Syndra, but right now they are just too weak in the early game. And that would be okay normally, but the items are just not good enough to make up for what you lack in the early game. So it's just primarily like, enchanters and then a lot of assassins, which is cool, and bruisers. So yeah, the meta is for sure, it's really fun right now, but I still think Riot should buff the mage items a bit so there could be even more diversity and we could see more mages at the same time as well.
Are there specific
what you're
mages you wish you could play, Jensen, that you can't right now?
You can always play stuff like Victor, Orianna, and Syndra, but I just don't think they're that good anymore.
I just didn't know if
you
there were ones that you like playing in particular where you're like, oh, I wish this was a champion I could play.
There's not really any champions like that right now, I think. I think it sucks that Orianna feels kind of weak. I like playing Orianna, obviously. Uh, you can
Yeah.
still play her. It's just the other champs are just better, and that's just the harsh reality.
That's
Um,
true.
I had a follow up when you're talking about buffing the mage itemizations and you're talking about late game. It sounds like, from what you were saying, their early game isn't great, but it didn't sound like you were saying that they get hard slammed in like these shit matchups and that's why they're not viable. It sounds more like even if you survive through some tougher early games, the payoff isn't worth it because you're not hitting this like insane 2 or 3 item power spike. Is that what you think the bigger problem is? Is that like you need some bigger payoffs, or would you say like the early game is just like smothering them out of the meta?
Yeah, no, it's the payout, right? Because right now there's a lot of focus on the early game, the scuttle crabs, etc. So even if you just kind of like lose the early game, the payoff is not big enough for what you lose out on in the early game. Because I could play Orianna every game and I could survive every game without dying if I play well, but I'm not even gonna be able to like outscale fast enough for it to really be worth it.
Yeah, that Randuin's Viego is just gonna sit on your face. Super
Yep.
fun.
Yep.
I
Well,
do gotta say, in the later parts of the game, it's more interesting to not have control mages because then people can really punish mistakes instead of like, oh, 4 people died, but Oriana's still alive, so the wave disappeared and now you can't get a turret. That I will say that's better. Like, oh no, Silas is alive. Okay,
Yeah,
we're still gonna take this turret.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is kind of just a problem with how teams are playing because the strong part about these control mages is they're really great at offering zone control, so it's hard to like push onto them. But once teams get better at like flanking or playing macro a bit better, then they also get exposed a bit better. But typically in NA, you can kind of just carry the fight because people are not good at like zoning or pressuring you from the right angles when you play control mages. And I think that's like the bigger problems. I don't think control mages are like super broken when they are meta. Teams are just not good at punishing it.
Cool.
That's right.
So Human Boy had a second topic, which I also liked, and
oh yeah,
so
let's
I
do it.
figured why not give him a
Yeah,
second one.
it's a quick call, so we can do that. Human Boy, what do you want? What else do you want to talk about?
I think Abbedagge is playing very well, and I think he's doing great. But I think Reapered is the bigger pickup for 100 Thieves because I don't think it's Abbedagge's contribution to the team that makes someday remember how to play with a jungler and how his bot lane cannot feed and how his jungler can invade without dying every game. So I think Reaper's done some good work on that team and it's not being talked about as much as Abbedagge, who is kicking a ton of ass. I'll give him that. But
I love
everybody else is also playing better.
I love this call because Jensen has a lot of experience.
Yeah, I mean
with
that's what I was
Reapered as
gonna
well.
say. Like he should be able to speak to both sides of this. Okay, Jensen, which is bigger for Hunter T, picking up Reaper or picking up Abbedagge? And hopefully there's no repercussions for you in however you answer this with people you may know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say how much Reaper is really doing for the team, right? But I agree they look like a completely different team, and I don't think it's all Abbedagge either. So
Jensen, do you know
just
of anybody we could ask that's like previously worked with Reaper in a coaching position that would know how much he might be able to contribute to a team?
yeah, I think I know the guy.
Okay.
I mean, from my experience of working with Reapered, he was really, really, really helpful when he first joined the team, and he did a lot of really good things for us. So it would make sense to me if it was all Reapered. He taught me and the team a lot when he first came around, and yeah, I agree. It's probably Reapered. I think Abbedagge is a good player, but I don't think he would just change 100 Thieves from what they were in Spring Split to what they are now.
How
I was
good
gonna-
do you think he is? I'm kind of curious because a lot of the North, I mean, especially obviously, I think people are familiar with him in the broader context, but a lot of North American or LCS fans might like not know as much about him from his because he's been over in LEC. So, hearing from you, like how you think of this player. Obviously, everybody knew about Perks whenever he joined, so I don't know what your opinion is on Abbedagge.
Um, I don't really know, to be honest. He seems okay. I don't think he's like better than
Give
anyone
us.
else, to be honest. I don't really know how to judge him.
Yeah.
I know
He's
you.
okay.
I know you haven't played him on stage yet. You play him this weekend, but what? I mean, you guys have to have scrimmed a couple times. You
Yeah.
who was winning the scrims in the 1v1?
I mean, I wasn't too impressed back then, but maybe he's gotten better. Maybe he was jet lagged.
Yeah, the jet
Okay.
lag. He was getting used to NA solo queue ping. It was throwing him off whenever he gets into scrims. All right.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, Mark.
No, I think I kind of like the caller's question because 100 Thieves, when that roster got announced, was obviously like very good on paper. But as the wheels kind of came off throughout spring, it was one of those things where it's like, okay, clearly this team's underperforming. They have so many good players. They should be able to get more out of them. And that's why I think Abbedagge, they obviously had a bit of a problem in mid lane, and this solves that problem. But preseason, I didn't think it would fix all their other ones. But that's why, from the outside looking in, I believe Reapered had a pretty big influence on getting them in the same page.
Well, that was one of the weird things is like they seem to not, to your point, not be on the same page, which is odd because they had previously played together for almost the entire, I mean, obviously Someday comes in, but like it was weird to see sort of the drop off from what we saw over at Golden Guardians once they joined 100T. You would have expected them to feel like a superior team to the one they were previously, but it didn't feel like they were able to keep that going. So I'm curious.
Here's a good question.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you can remember back to the 2020 summer playoffs, Jensen, when like TSM lost to Golden Guardians, and then Golden Guardians won the next two games of the lower bracket series, and then TSM reverse swept them. And I think myself and a lot of the community were like, holy shit, Golden Guardians is actually really good. Behind the scenes, I don't know if you can remember, were they actually like contesting the top teams, or did they just have like a couple good stage games that...
Or was TSM bad?
I mean, TSM won the championship that
Yeah, I know, but they seem to be getting... The perspective from the outside on TSM over that playoffs was like, wow, like everybody thought they were really bad, and then they seemed to just like climb up in strength until they won, like they were powering up. So through the losers bracket.
I mean, I already talked about this a bit back then. If you guys can remember, there was TSM fans didn't like me too much.
I do recall that, but you didn't talk about the Golden Guardian side of it. So.
I copied his copy pasta from Twitter and tweeted it out after everything TSM did. I wrote that for so many impressions.
but yeah, I mean, I thought at the time TSM was pretty bad. Did they get 3-0'd by Golden Guardians? I don't remember.
Yeah, it was.
And then I think we played Golden Guardians the next week, and we 3-0'd them without any real problem, any real struggle. So I thought Golden Guardians, they were okay, but I don't think they were like a contender for the championship. But throughout the whole playoffs, TSM did get a lot better. And then eventually they beat Golden Guardians. I think it was a 5-game series.
It was 5 games.
Correctly.
They went.
Yeah, it was reverse
Golden
sweep.
Guardians was 2. Yeah, reverse sweep.
Yeah, and I think, you learn so much from playing best of fives if you actually like are a good team and you're good players. And I think that's what TSM did. They learned a lot from all their losses, and they came back and won a championship. So Golden Guardians was okay, but TSM was also bad in the beginning. And then I also wonder if Someday is that much of an upgrade over Haunter, because I haven't been too impressed with him lately as well. So maybe that's why 100 Thieves were struggling.
Mark,
initially.
I thought we had a conversation on the show last spring where I was like, I don't know, Someday's doing so great to my untrained non-analyst eye. And then you popped off at me angrily.
When did you say it?
What?
Did you say it after Lock-in tournament? Because he was good after Lock-in.
No, I think I
during
said
Lock-in.
it. I think I said it much later in the. I think it was when 100T started to look like they were crumbling, and I was like, I don't know if Someday's looking too good. And you're like, oh yeah, Travis. What about blah 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 blah? And I was like, okay, well I don't recall.
I don't know what I said. Maybe I did. But I think he's someone who has never hit his like peak that people expected when he came over, or even if he did for a little bit, it's not sustained. Like I remember him hitting like a 4-man Jax E to save the game, and then like they come back and win on that. But then he stops playing Jax. All of a sudden, he's back on tanks, and I think a lot of people are waiting to see Someday unleashed, and it's just never happened.
Is it ever going to happen?
I mean, I think he's looked better so far. Like his Gwen was decent. I'm trying to remember what else he played recently. I feel like people have been letting Gwen through a surprising amount. Do you think Gwen's busted? Because on the outside, everyone thinks Gwen's the dumbest shit ever. But you guys keep letting it through for... Oh, maybe this is too
inside,
strategic of a question. Yeah, sorry.
It could be, but yeah, I think if you're really good at Gwen, then it's pretty OP. It's really annoying to deal with. I think the W is just really dumb.
Okay, so there's our answer. When TL lets Gwen through, it's because they
They
don't
think the other
respect
top
whoever's
sucks.
going to play. Yeah, exactly. It's like, we can handle this. Okay, Human Boy, thanks so much. Do you think that we covered this, or do you have anything else that you got 2 takes in, so I feel like you should be happy.
You guys did great.
All right, thank you. Is there anything you want to shout out before we take a quick break?
2 things real quick. I have a TL jersey behind me in the closet, and we got it when we went to Detroit to see the finals. So shout out to my brother who went with me. And then, if anybody out there is looking for some mediocre Total War content, I started a YouTube channel, Human Boy Yes Yes. Come enjoy the kind of not really fun.
What do you play on what, Legendary?
I play online versus other.
Oh,
totally
you're
human
playing
beings.
the Oh boy, you're the first person
Yeah.
I feel like I've ever met that actually doesn't just play the single player. Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much, Human Boy, for the call, and we'll catch you next time.
Later.
All right, we're going to take a quick break to talk about our sponsor, Alienware. And when I say our, I mean ours, because there's an Alienware logo up behind in several places. I think behind Jensen, there's at least one on the wall, and also the big Alienware banner across the top. Anyway, Alienware doing a lot of really cool stuff, and one of the things I recommend people do is they check out the Alienware Arena. I've talked about it before. I believe you can go sign up for it at alienware.com/Travis. Let's see if there's a link to sign up for it there. I'm going to just double check. Yeah, I think if you go to alienware.com/Travis, you click the link all the way up at the top, right in the middle. It says Alienware Arena. You can sign up, or maybe you've already been a part of, you've maybe already signed up before, so you can just check over to it. But they've been doing a bunch of stuff. Last week they were giving away, I think, keys for Resident Evil, like the new one. But I know I've been teased. I actually don't even know what it is, but I've been teased that they've got something cool that they're doing tomorrow. So if you're watching this live, then tomorrow. But if you're watching it on VOD, then maybe today or yesterday. That's how time works. But thank you so much to Alienware for sponsoring the show. You can use the link in the description on the YouTube video if you are listening to it there. Otherwise, I'll put it in the chat right now for people to head over to my URL. It's always helpful when people check out our page. But yeah, they've got a bunch of cool giveaways and stuff they're doing through Alienware Arena. And signing up for Alienware Arena through my page is actually very helpful to me. In fact, sometimes people say like, hey, I'm not in the market for a new computer, or I don't know, maybe you just really like building your own or something. The way you can help me is by checking out Alienware Arena, signing up, because even just that, I think, is something that they love to see from the folks that they support. So thank you so much to Alienware for supporting the show, and please sign up for Alienware Arena so you can go get some free stuff. It's awesome. Anyway, I think we're ready for the next caller, Mark, if you want to go grab them. Off he goes. Count 001, TomShoe, Real Foxy 1 for the 43 months. I Love You Chat for 42 months. Paisley Pickles, Goliath, Blue Jay, Christabel for 43. Wow, a lot of people coming in for a while. Ian, or I think that's it. Land 7 or Ian 7, thank you. Silverius, Bread Dork Wheats, gift to the sub. Irrelevant Jeff, Smoke Dog, and Matt 7389. We got some more, but we'll get to them in just a second because Mark should be showing up any moment with our next caller, but he's still not. So I'm going to shout out Flick Nickum and iNuber. Spawn the Cast or resubscribed. He's been here for 6 months. Do you interact with Spawn much, Jensen?
Whoa. From time to time.
From time to time. What is your opinion of him?
Seems like a cool dude.
Okay. All right. Well, I was giving you the opportunity to poke fun at him, but I'll let it slide.
Who?
Oh, my bad.
Is it pronounced Alijah?
Yeah, it's Elijah. How's it going?
Nice. It's spelled a little differently, so I'm glad I nailed that. Props to me. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Wenatchee, Washington.
Okay. Wait, Wenatchee? Is that how you say it?
Yeah,
I'm
Wenatchee.
just killing it tonight. All right. Wenatchee, Washington. What do you want to talk about on the show?
Well, my idea was that I think Alphari being benched is not a big deal. I think Jenkins looks good on stuff like GP and Akali. I think Alphari was getting first blooded a lot last in spring, and even a little bit in summer. And instead, I'd like to see more play-making champions from Jensen, such as LeBlanc and Zoe, and just more focus around mid-jungle synergy from Team Liquid in general.
I love that you said he was getting first blooded even a little bit in summer. You mean the one game that he played?
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly.
Yes.
He has 100% first blood rate. Stats are great.
So what were your opinions of him as a player, Alijah? Were like, because obviously a lot of people thought that he was the greatest in the league in top lane. So did you not feel like he was that?
No, I kind of did in some ways, but I think it was these very small margins that it was putting him ahead. And then as soon as I started seeing him getting first blooded and losing leads for the team just in general, I started to kind of question what I was looking at. I think I was actually a little bit shifted by the community opinion. There was a lot of people out there that's like, "Oh, Alphari is so good," and then and so I kind of jumped on that train, and I'm doubting that I don't know why I even jumped on that train as I'm starting to look at it, because I mean, I don't have any problem with him. Team Liquid is actually my favorite team, so I definitely want to see every player on that team as being amazing. But yeah, no, I'm starting to doubt my take there, my original take.
Well, I will just say, regardless of whether or not he was dropping off or not, he did. I think it's almost universally agreed that he was just dominated the league in the top lane position for almost all of spring. And he was supposed to be like this, he was among the Sword Art, Perks, Alphari like triumvirate that was coming in to just crush NA after we had Bjergsen and Doublelift retire. And so I'm going to say it is a big deal, no matter what the circumstances were for him to not pan out. And I think people would be saying the same thing about Perks or Sword Art if either of them were there, though maybe the memes would be slightly different around salaries or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the way that I would direct some of this to Jensen that I think he would be able to answer is probably like, how does like the benching change like play as well? Because whenever you have someone who's playing a lot more carries in the top side, that's going to require more babysitting and getting that player ahead and making sure that your carry can actually carry in the late game. And Core JJ felt like he was top all the time. So with Jenkins getting put on kind of GP duty, which is like the ultimate like weak side, leave him on an island, fuck yourself, like just go farm. Has it led to more focus between you and Santorum working together, or is the team just kind of like figuring it out on the fly?
Yeah, I mean, when we played with Alphari, we were primarily playing topside, but obviously it makes sense. I think he had, his stats was undeniable. He had really good laning stats. He's really, really, really good in lane. And so we just played a lot around top lane, tried to dive top a lot, and snowball the games that way. And now with Jenkins, he's a bit more. I guess he's kind of new to the team, so he doesn't talk as much. So naturally, it'll open up room for us to play a bit differently. And so yeah, I think we are playing differently. More mid-focused and more bot-focused. But yeah, I think our style has changed a bit for now at least.
Yeah, I guess I'm part of the reason I'm a little worried for TL in the long run, especially, and by worry I mean perhaps you are in much bigger threat of not winning the split or having Cloud9 or TSM or somebody take it, is like it just feels like you have one less threat, right? Like if you do have to throw Jenkins on and he's like talking a little less, he's less dominant, and you guys are playing less towards top lane, it's like it almost feels like he's gonna fill that space of like, okay, just go up there and don't feed and like chill and like do your thing. So I don't know if you feel like TL fans should be worried about that, or if you think that it's a completely unfounded concern that things are going to be fine for TL regardless.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's undervaluing Jenkins a little bit, because I think he is still he's also a good laner. He's just not as experienced, right? And he hasn't played stage much, so like all the communication stuff is something that's hopefully going to come naturally or with more play. But I mean, just like you, right? Like when it happened, I had the same concerns. Like, are we gonna win NA now? Like, what's gonna happen, right? But we, just have to give it time and see how it goes. And I'm sure by sometime somewhere later on during the split that Alphari will potentially come back, right? And then we'll see how things go from there.
Yeah.
On the topic of communication, did you kill Jenkins in that EG game when he was getting all in by Aatrox and you're like, I can TP up or something, and then instead of flashing towards the turret, he flashed like towards your TP? Was that your fault, or like what happened there?
No, he was just fighting, and then I was like, I have to TP to try to save him, and it didn't work out. I don't remember. Did I grief it? I actually don't remember at all. I just remember everything that happened there was really bad for the game.
It was pretty tragic. He was going to lose his flash no matter what, but I think he could have lived if he just kept running down and flashed in. But then when he saw your TP, he started running back into the lane to get to your TP and I think try and bait the Aatrox. I didn't know.
Okay.
I didn't know what the comms were. If you remembered, like.
No, I just remember seeing Top and I was like, shit, like I gotta go here now, or it's
Yeah.
or it's gonna be bad. But yeah, maybe I killed him.
Okay, I didn't know if it was a hard call or if that was both you guys just kind of doing it.
Yeah, it was kind of just like a random moment kind of thing,
Yeah.
I just had to go for it.
Well, Mark, I think both Jensen and I gave our opinions. What do you think? Is it a big deal that Alphari has been benched and that we've got Jenkins in?
I think it's like, kind of what Jensen was saying, a little too early to say for sure. But on paper, you're concerned because I think NA looks pretty decent this split. I mean, there's the C9 roster swap, which is its own can of worms. But at least, like they were pretty good. They won spring. And then 100 Thieves right now, at least what we're seeing on stage, looks like the best team. Their games have been really clean. I know they lost their first one, but C9's like CLG win was a little sketch. The TLEG game, a little sketch, and I don't think 100 Thieves, they've been pretty clean in their wins. So
you didn't mention TSM.
TSM, I hate them because they fucked me over in the dive bets.
Your prediction, yeah.
Yeah.
What was it again? You said like they're not going to lose.
All right, so to be fair, it was a bet for like you make bets for comedy sometimes. This was definitely a bet for comedy. It just went south even faster than I thought it was going to go south.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, I just think NA looks pretty competitive. So anytime that you're like, from the outside looking in, it's like they have the best top laner in the league. To like Jenkins, who knows how he ends up? It's just an extra question mark on already a pretty competitive split.
Yeah. All right.
Totally fair.
Well, Alijah, anything you want to shout out before we go on to our next caller?
Definitely, yeah. Shout out to Alienware. I got a computer actually off of your promo code back in the day.
Nice.
Shout out to Secret Labs. Got a Team Liquid Secret Labs chair. That was awesome. And shout out to you guys, longtime listener.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming on, and it's glad to hear that you purchased an Alienware. Always nice to hear. Thanks so much for the call. All right. Off to the next caller. Mark goes. All right, we got iNuber. Thank you for the 6 months. I think I shouted him out. Spawn. Barn Nickel. Thank you for the 6. Gaiden TV for 30. Clock Cruncher. There's the 10 gifted subs. And then also gifted a sub to Mark. Munizzle gifted a sub to Jensen. Congratulations, Jensen, on your sub.
Wow.
I'm sure one of the bigger achievements in your esports career.
That's huge.
Draw Blake for 6. Ventus Official 39. Mark Tater. Grahambino. Thank you all for the subs. We got Nelson here. Nelson, where are you calling from?
Yeah, I'm calling from Singapore.
Singapore. Okay. What do you want to talk about on the show?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to ask Jensen, like, does he think the coaches he had right in the past, like, did they impact him well in a positive way, or at least help him like improve on his game?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think Reapered helped me the most. Maybe that was because it was like early parts of my career, but there was for sure like important things that I took away. Yeah.
For audio listeners who may not know, Travis didn't really acknowledge who our caller is.
I'm waiting. I wanted to see what Jensen's reaction was going to be, and I was going to sneak in a general question about LEC and what Nelson thought about LEC kicking off.
Okay. I mean, Jensen, did you know that this was a G2 coach, Nelson?
Oh no, I had no.
He's trying to pump you for information on NA coaches.
Okay, that's where we are.
Well, maybe we could expand the conversation a little bit to be like, Jensen, what do you think makes a good coach?
That's coaching is like such a weird topic, right? Because there's so many things they can do that can either be good or negative. But I think, accommodating to how the player is, weaknesses and strength, and help them work on their weaknesses. I think you have to identify what your player's strengths are, and then you work on those, and then you figure out their weaknesses and help them with them. I think those are like the most important things in my opinion. And then, I mean, obviously being good at facilitating discussions is really important too. But I mean, nowadays there's so many like different type of coach positions, right? And analysts that helps with one thing or another. But I still don't know if like there's like a team that has figured out what works the best. Because for me, it's always been like different how everything runs.
Nelson, maybe, or caller, maybe I can throw it back to you. What do you think makes a good coach in esports?
At least, from my experience, which I had when I was in the LFL, basically there's only one or two coaches who handled everything, So he would know how to set up Drakes, like set up Dragon, set up Baron, how to puff, how to play our lane, and those two coaches have to do everything for all the players. And of course, right, the coaches which I worked with before, they're all like, at least for now, they are top 4 in LPL, so they should be correct.
Gotcha.
On that topic, that sounds more like these coaches are handling a lot of strategy, whereas I've heard, at least in popular community, and sometimes even from players themselves, that like a lot of coaches in esports they prefer were like more almost personality managers in some sense, and making sure that everything's harmonious and that like you're facilitating discussion and this kind of stuff. Do you think that would ever be enough, or do you think that like the coaching staff should also have opinions on this is how you actually really should approach Dragon, and should be more of an actual six voice on strategy?
I think it depends, right? Depends on what team you're coaching on. Like if you're coaching one of the best teams in the world, then of course there's a discussion. But if you're not, then there's no other way, because probably the coach came from somewhere else, playing from a better region, better team, and I don't think there should be another option, unless of course it doesn't work, right? But
yeah,
if it works, then at least players should give it a fair try, I suppose. And also the coaches, which I know, they handle both the like personal issues, I guess, or like the players' morale and in game as well, which is why I feel like in NA maybe everyone is like too overstaffed, so there's no like connectivity, between the stuff.
We have too many coaches, too many analysts, you're saying.
Yeah, and you're not sure like what's happening.
Right.
Jensen,
like not everyone is sure what's happening.
Jensen, if you had to cut the Team Liquid staff by 50%, who would you fire?
That's a great question, Travis.
Nelson, if Team Liquid makes it to Worlds this year, based off of what you've seen from them so far, how far do you think they're going to do, and how do you think they'll match up against LEC?
I mean, they can beat LEC for sure, right? Other than G2, but.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I mean, I think it's hard for this year. At least from what I see from both regions, there could be a chance where it's like 4 LPL, 3 LCK, and someone else.
Yeah.
In the top 16, top 8.
Only one team's getting out of groups in all the NA and EU. Oof. I hope you're wrong.
All right, Nelson, thank you so much for calling in. This was a pleasant surprise. Are you... Sorry, I haven't been keeping up a little bit with your situation. I know obviously you ended up joining up with G2, but are you remote for a very long time? Is there a plan that you might make it over at some point during the split?
I'm just waiting for my visa. Should be here soon.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for the call. Anything you want to shout out?
Yeah, I mean, like, thanks to Travis and Mark for your hot tub streams. Yeah, thanks to Jensen as well for answering my question, and then help me say hi to Oliver. And
Oh,
yep, and shout out to G2. Everyone can go to g2esports.com/shop.
Very good. Well, thank you, Nelson, for the call. Really appreciate it. Fun, pleasant surprise, and we'll catch you next time. Cool. That was fun. I did not know that until he said Singapore. That's when I knew that it was him. But it was very funny before then. Droblink, thank you for the resub. Ventus official 39 months. Mark Tater. Honest Dragon HD. D9 gifted 5 subs out. Iron Scrub Vaults, Jassy P. Roberto for 36 months, 3 years. Thank you. And then also gifted a sub to Alphari. Boater Michael resubbed. Dr. Tony, Fish Sticks. Dr. Tony with a tier 2, Fish Sticks, and then Cowardly Fool. Okay, everybody, I gotta stop. We'll read out more. You guys are all suddenly spamming me all at once. But we got LeBoto here. LeBoto, where are you calling from?
Fairborn, Ohio.
Ohio. Where in Ohio? Fairborn?
Yeah, it's just off of Dayton by the Air Force Base,
Gotcha.
over where the aliens are.
Oh, I didn't realize that there were aliens. I thought that was a New Mexico thing.
are they real?
Area 52 is in Right Pat.
Oh, really? Okay, interesting.
Yeah, we got the spaceships.
I was just having an Ohio conversation. So on Saturday night, Medios had a get together of people for his birthday, and I was talking to Captain Flowers about Ohio and learning about where he's from because he and I did an interview, but he didn't tell me what city, and so I was learning about Ohio from him. Either way, what do you want?
Captain's from Ohio.
What's that?
Captain's from Ohio.
Yeah, Captain Flowers is from Ohio.
Cool.
Yeah. What do you want to talk about on the show?
Yeah. So the hot take is that the players' personalities are the worst part of the LCS. And so there are a few things. I think the big 2 points are the negativity that certain players, like potentially the co-streaming ones, bring. I think it just perpetuates some of the negativity around NA, and I don't want to stay on that topic too much because I think obviously everyone's got their own opinions on that. I think the bigger part of it is just players have no personalities. They're so goddamn boring. I want to hear more from Blabber, and I think Jensen is. I think he speaks his mind, and I think he says his opinions, but I still think there's more personality you can put into these players. And so my quote unquote fixes are obviously less PR answers. So many answers are I'm just thinking about the next game. I'm just, down, head down, working towards whatever win next. And as a fan, I don't want to hear that. I want to hear about, how they're going to crush, X person on the other team because they don't think they're very good. They think they're going to dominate the lane because, X person's laning sucks, or this guy always chokes in the big moments. I want a level of friendships and rivalries to become more public. And I think especially with the newer players coming in, it makes it even harder because, I think organizations shield them a lot. I think they are not obligated to do much, public relations. And I think in terms of esports, that's the biggest thing esports lacks from regular sports is even though everyone's on Twitter. Yeah. Even though everyone's on Twitter, it doesn't feel like there's as much personality to each individual player.
Just want to say Mark pulled this caller, not me, just before anyone accuses me of pulling a call that is very relevant to a lot of things that I feel sometimes.
Well, that's why I pulled it. I thought you care about this.
I'm glad. I don't want people to think oh, Travis is running a show off of opinions or frustrations he has about.
All right, let's break it down. Part 1, the negative attitudes of co-streamers and stuff, and the NA fucking sucks.
I have
general sentiment.
I have a side tangent for this part for the watch party stuff.
Well, should I let Jensen answer first if he feels is this something that he's noticed or anything? Does that have any impact?
I mean, I don't watch I assume this is mostly about the co-streamers, right? That they say NA is bad and whatnot. But
They're highly
I-
critical.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't care about it too much. I imagine like, you know, if there were people who would like co-stream EU or something, they would probably say the same thing. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's just, when you see everything from like the full perspective with like you see full vision and everything, it's a lot easier to judge people and be like, wow, like that was bad, which it probably is true. So I think it's fine, to be honest. I don't mind it too much.
Could I give one counterpoint to that?
Yeah.
Sure.
So I think it's not necessarily like, obviously you can point out all the mistakes. I think the bigger issue that I have with it, and I also, like I said, I don't want to spend too much time on this because I think this can get beat to death pretty quickly. But I think the issue is there's always already a lens that NA is bad. And especially on Reddit, which I guess is where I frequent mostly, I definitely feel that. So I think when you get the watch parties and people specifically pointing out all the mistakes versus the cast, which is, I think, more positive, or at least I think a bit more fair in terms of the being critical, I think that's really where the issue stems from.
I mean, I was watching a co-stream this weekend, I won't say which, where they were literally just like one of the streamers said, "Please retire," about a player and in the match, which I think is perhaps a little strong. But yeah,
Was it Jensen? Did he say it about Jensen?
No,
Who did he
they
say
did
it about?
Did not say it about Jensen. I actually forget which
okay.
player it was. It was I think one of the newer players, actually, ironically, one of the players that's been around for a bit but made it out of academy. I forget who. Oh yes, somebody in the chat got it. Somebody in the chat got
Uplift.
it. I'm not gonna say who said it, and I'm not gonna say who they said it about, but people in the chat figured it out. Anyway, yeah, I don't know if we need a situation, and regardless of if this person is my friend or not, I think it's probably not great when your watch party folks are saying this player should retire during the stream. But to Jensen's point, that it's tough because these are kind of like when we are at the studio, and I am standing next to a player. Maybe they don't say this player should retire, but they do say like, "Oh my God, what are they doing?" Blah blah blah. Like they are authentic reactions. So, it is an interesting situation. I don't know. I agree with you, caller, that the watch party stuff sometimes gets a little too negative. I've appreciated watching a double of Sneaky and Mitos, if only because I feel like they all kind of argue with each other sometimes. So when one of them calls out a player, maybe one of the other ones says, "Yeah, but if you think about it, like this might have been the situation." So it's a little bit more balanced. But yeah, on the watch party stuff, I do want to say I'm a little disappointed because I was watching DeMonte stream today, and DeMonte was mentioning how he tried to get access to do the watch party stream, and he got denied because I guess he didn't have enough viewership was the reason they told him, and he was told to like keep building his viewership. The problem with that is like you can't really stream against the LCS, so it's harder to build viewership when you are limited to building viewership only across 4 days of the week. And so I think it's just a difficult situation. And he's actually somebody who I would love to see continue to create content. I mean, who's streaming like 750 people? I don't know if he got hosted, but I don't know. He's another name that I would love to see part of the watch party stuff. So I just think it's disappointing that he was not able to get access to it. Anyway, Mark, should we move on to the next topic of this, which was like the players themselves don't exhibit much personality?
Sure.
So what do you think of that, Jensen? Because I agree with the caller that we have way less personality from a lot of the pro players than we used to. I mean, when you first joined the league, I remember doing all sorts of goofy interviews. Players would like make a lot of jokes, make a lot of memes, and now it's I sometimes feel like it's like pulling teeth to try to get a player to like joke around and not just give like an automated answer to a question. So I guess on the player side, one, do you think that's true? And two, why do you think it is that like players in the league are so more reserved in content than they used to be?
Yeah, I mean, I for sure agree. I think there's a couple of reasons. One, I mean, right now it's hard to get a lot of content out. because of COVID, obviously. But even then, I think there is still a bit lack of content. And then also, for some cases, I think there could be more content about like the player versus player matchup, where you like, basically like LPL, they like make them trash talk each other, basically, right? And I think that would like force some personality out. And then I think, especially with the newer players, they're like a bit more reserved. Obviously, they don't want to like be seen as the bad guy. Like I think everyone remembers when Fudge did like his first interview. I think a lot of people just immediately disliked him because of something very. I don't remember what he said, but he said something that like pissed off a lot of people. So I think
he just
those
said
are like
that
the
all the
reasons
top
why.
laners were bad, or something to that
Yeah.
extent. Yeah.
And then Reddit is already like really fucking annoying to deal with. Like I don't think
Yes,
anyone likes
yes, it
Reddit.
is.
So the comments they say it's like kind of just repetitive and biased against certain people, me included, I think at least. So it's just like if you don't like people disliking you, then you're not gonna say bad things or like trash talk other people because it'll just get worse.
On that front, I mean, like you've always been someone who pretty much it feels like says what you think, especially maybe not about everything, but at least about like what you think of another player or a performance or something. Have you ever felt the urge to pull back on that because of that kind of like Reddit backlash or whatever? Like obviously the Bjergsen or TSM thing from last split got memed to all hell, but like I don't know if that ever gets to the point where you're like, man, fuck that. Why'd I open my mouth? I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, I want to be who I am, but it's like, it always feels like at least like 80% of the people are like, damn, like you shouldn't have said that. Like, fuck you. Like, now we don't like you anymore. And it's like, oh, I guess I shouldn't have said it. But it's like, I think people appreciate people who are outspoken, but the comments are always, there's always going to be more negative people than positive people in the comments, I think. So it just looks worse than it in reality is, in my opinion. So yeah, it's hard for people to like, I guess for people like me who just want to be upfront and straightforward and not like beat the bush around, just say how we feel, because it feels like there's more people that dislike it than like it.
Yeah, I mean, even if volume wise, there's not more people saying kill yourself. Like a couple DMs like that stick in your mind a lot more, or like a comment that's like, "This is why Jensen always sucks. He always talks shit and can't back it up." Like that.
Yeah.
Just viscerally, when you read that, sticks out more than just like, "I'm glad he said that." And then you like those kinds of things never. It just feels lopsided, even if it's not.
Mark, just ignore those people. Don't you understand? You should just ignore comments like that. Just don't take them seriously. Why would you let them get to you?
Why are you getting upset that people are writing, a narrative about you on Reddit that's getting a lot of upvotes,
No, just ignore them. Who cares?
Just ignore them.
I think
that's the automatic response. Anytime anybody ever tries to talk about this stuff, like folks who have never been in this situation before because they don't have like a public facing job or they don't do the content stuff, all come out of the woodwork to let you know how you should just magically feel differently and just change your ability to perceive like false narratives being said about you online.
This is why I am so fucking down to quote retweet dumbasses on Twitter flaming. If you have a bad take, but it's like a question or it's like, feels like your intent is good behind it, then I wouldn't do this to you. But anyone who flames me, I quote retweet. And I'm like, have a taste, see what it's like. And for that exact reason, because people think, oh, you have a glass jaw, but you just watch people tuck their tails between their legs when you quote retweet them.
Well, and then they get really offended and they go like, oh, you sent your army
used your
of
audience.
people.
You sent your army. It's like, no, you're a fucking idiot. And I just made it known. Like, that wasn't me. I didn't say that. I didn't type that on your keyboard.
I feel less. So one, if somebody says something like really offensive in a DM, I'm gonna be a lot less like I'm gonna not have any whatever. If somebody says something silly in a DM and it's private, that's one thing. When people make very public statements on Twitter, like if it's a public tweet at you, I'm like, you have just publicly proclaimed this to the world, essentially.
That's why I don't feel
Twitter.
bad.
Yeah,
I don't snip DMs or anything. I actually find DMs very easy to ignore because like no one else is interacting with them. But like sometimes a comment just like keeps showing up in your fucking feed because like people are interacting with it, and that's the one where I'm like,
and then it's like, oh, how dare you? I don't know. This has just become Mark and I complaining about
Yeah.
being internet personalities, but it is very frustrating, and I think I somewhat envy pro players on the fact that I know you guys kind of have to think about what folks think of you, Jensen, but on the other hand, you won't perform worse in the LCS because a bunch of people came and disliked your video on the YouTube channel, whereas like for me, I create content, it'll get like mass down dislikes on YouTube. My algorithm gets fucked, and so it's like people accuse folks or creators of being very biased. Oftentimes, I think we have to be biased towards the audience because if you say something people don't like, they will impact your ability to generate revenue. And I'm not talking about like cancel culture either. I'm just talking about like if I said, you know,
TSM
I think
ass.
yeah, TSM sucks, and then all the TSM fans are like, I'm gonna dislike or I'm gonna downvote everything that Travis posts online.
That's the Thorn approach.
It's tough. It's tough. Anyway,
I have
back
a question
on topic.
about that though. Is like I also feel like the interaction between player and content creator usually sucks. Like a couple times Jensen has said like this power ranking blows that like I've made, or you know, like whatever it is, and I never care about that like a player says, you know, they meme a power ranking or whatever. I'll have a discussion or whatever about it. It's actually like the rest of the community's blowback usually to it that makes it annoying. And I assume it's equally annoying for pro players because I feel like what always happens is there's like this one crowd that feels like they have this trump card that's like, well, your job's to shut up and play. And like, I never want anyone, like, I hate when I see that because I'm like, no, I want the pro players to interact with the content that we're making and like sharing their thoughts if they think it was a good or a bad list or whatever. And I've always appreciated when Jensen has said like, whether it's a broadcast element or something, you know, like that thought, because a lot of people don't want to touch it because it's just going to spark a controversy. But I don't know. I'd rather that than nothing.
Jensen, can you start shitting on more things that Mark says on the broadcast? He
Will do. I'll
appreciates
keep
it.
that in mind.
Yeah.
He wants it. It's something he thinks is good.
I'm sure we got some tier lists coming up on the broadcast, so get ready.
Yeah.
I'll be ready.
Where are you going to rank Jensen? You should rank him last on any tier list, just to get to call back to this.
That's not believable. I have to put him like fourth, which is just enough of a snub to probably piss him off, but people would think I actually think that.
Put him below Abbedagge.
That's a good one.
Put him below Abbedagge.
Ooh. Yeah, that one would get me.
Well, if you lose your matchup this weekend on Sunday, I don't know.
That's
Yeah,
what's
this
at
clip
stake.
would go everywhere, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Either way, I don't know. I hate it. I wish that we had more vocal pros. I don't blame them for trying to shy away from that stuff, but it is a stark contrast from the old days where I think there was just a lot more fun, wild stuff going on. LeBoto, thank you so much for the call. Anything you want to shout out before we take a quick break?
I want to shout out the 2018 C9, especially Jensen, on that run for Worlds. That was the first year I started watching pro play, and I mean, it made me a C9 fan for life and a Jensen fan. So
Wait, is that the split where he had 50 more kills than the next closest person?
I don't think so. It was. I mean, it's the one where they make quarters. I think I've always heard about that split, but I never got a chance to see it. I don't think.
I bring it up every time I can about how Jensen was robbed. About like I'm like, how the fuck do you, like he had 350 kills, and the next person's closest person had 300. He was like 20% more kills than the next closest person. I'm like, how do you not get MVP that split?
It's a popularity contest.
Yeah.
Mark trying to do damage control right now with Jensen after everything he just said.
What? No, I'm just saying.
I know. I'm teasing.
I thought that's what the caller was shouting out because that was a big plus.
Oh
one.
no! I think the run was the making of the quarterfinals, the 3-0 against Afrika, even if it wasn't necessarily the cleanest 3-0, which is a weird thing to say. And then also shout out to the Griffin players, minus Sword. I think I really hope they I hope they find success. Like I'm rooting for Tarzan and Chovy and them because they like the same year they blew up on the scene, and it kind of was a shame to see them all fall apart and fall away from each other. And yeah, I really hope to see more players, making content with each other, like, bantering with each other and that getting showcased on air. Cause I think that's a huge part that's really lacking the LCS. So, anyway, have a good night.
Thanks so much for the call.
Thank you.
We'll catch you next time. All right. We're going to take a quick break to talk about Game Fuel. Thank you so much to Game Fuel for sponsoring the show. I am very dangerously low on Game Fuel. I just had to put a new request in for them because my fridge has run down to a point where I can't afford to keep it full, and so we're gonna get a restock coming in soon. But I really appreciate everything that Game Fuel does to support us, and I would love it if you guys could help support their support of this show. If you like the show, if you're listening to it and you're like, golly gee, I've listened to this show for many years and I have an above average opinion of it. I know it's not going to be an amazing opinion, but like above average. Maybe you can go to the link in the description of the YouTube video or the link I just put into chat and try out Game Fuel. Just a case, try a variety pack. They have some zero sugar options for you. Those are the ones that Mark likes to drink. And you could try that variety pack if you're looking for something that is a little tamer on the calories. Either way, you can do that. And when you check out, please, please, please use code Travis to save 5%. And if it isn't available in your part of the U.S., maybe it's outside of the shipping range or whatever, you can use that Amazon link that we put in the description as well, because that also helps. And then when you do, please tweet at Gamefield because they love it. I mean, by the way, I'm not going to say who, but like, we were just talking to a new sponsor this week, potentially for something in the future, and was hearing again, it's just like people with the Hotline League audience, you guys shout stuff out when you let Game Fuel know the stuff, they see the tweets and all that stuff. It's incredibly helpful. So thank you so much for supporting our sponsors, and if you want to support Game Fuel supporting us, you can do so at the link in the video description or in the Twitch chat. Thank you so much, Game Fuel. All right, Mark, you want to go grab the next caller?
Yes, sir.
Gamikai says, Game Fuel good for pre-workout. I have not tried it, but I think some other people have. Actually, I got a case for Sloan and my friend, and she was using it for pre-workout, and she said she liked it. So maybe that's pretty good. I need to start working out again. TomShoe, where are you calling from?
What's up, y'all? Calling from Washington, D.C.
Did you get a new microphone?
Did I? Does it sound better? Does it sound worse?
It sounds better, but you also sound older.
I don't know, dude.
Well, congratulations.
I did have a lot to drink last week, so maybe
Oh boy. Okay.
He's dropping the voice down for Jensen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What's up? What's up, bro?
Yeah.
What's up, dude?
Tom, what do you want to talk about on the show?
So yeah, I'll get to my Yasui pop off in a minute. But before, I want to talk about my actual take. And it's not necessarily about the Alphari benching, but more so about the...
I'm going to start a 45-second timer for you, starting now.
Okay, but it's more so about... it's more so about the, I would say, the Yasui and the pretty substitutions, and more how we need to start getting away from the actual stigma around a player being benched. Because I know... It seems like in the West, we kind of have this thing around benching in that we're essentially saying that the team doesn't want to play with that player anymore, or that player's bad, or they're having attitude issues, or they just generally suck in general. And we're starting to see in Reddit, I saw when they had the announcement of Yasui starting in Sligo and Academy, like there was a lot of surprise over like, hey bro, like what the fuck is going on? I thought Sligo was doing good, and people were just generally reacting with incredulity and not really like taking into account the actual reasons behind why they would make a substitution.
15
and
seconds.
the same could go for pretty, right? And it kind of and it goes, and I know in the web.
Okay, so
you muted him.
I muted him. I gave him 45 seconds, and then I actually gave him a minute. I gave him an extra third of that, so he knew ahead of time. All right.
Is this a known caller that does this every time?
TomShoe has long opinions.
He'll let you go. He will go as long as you let him.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I will unmute TomShoe now to see if he's okay.
Okay, I'm just kidding.
He's still going. He didn't even notice.
So there's a stigma against benching players. We should do a better job of opening that up. You know what's interesting is I will say that I have an interview with LeBoto that people can check out where he talked a lot about how he sort of hates the situation right now where the only time a player in academy can get fielded, it's not necessarily about if they're playing well, if they're having a great time, blah, blah, blah. They just have to hope that something like, the player above them starts screaming at people or just starts failing miserably. And so that the only time you ever see another player show up is when somebody else has just absolutely failed at their job. And I think it's an interesting point. Like I also kind of get the idea of like, yeah, you do want to field the best player to get these wins. But I think it is also a very unfortunate circumstance that the downside of that is that like anytime benching players is always going to sound terrible when the only reason you do it is for behavioral or performance issues, never because somebody else is doing really well. So I think you raise a very valuable point, TomShoe, and then I think there's a discussion to be had about like whether or not that is practical. So I'm going to throw to Mark, who was the coach previously, to ask him before we get to Jensen about what you think of this. Like, is it bad that benching is considered so bad and only been traditionally used in these something has gone horribly wrong situations?
I mean, it's really weird to talk about benching when so many people like from a traditional sports background, because a lot of substitutions and things happen for like physical reasons, like, oh, I need a break, or I need like I can't play the entire game, you sub someone out for a little bit. In league, I mean, burnout aside, there are not real limitations for why a player needs to get taken out, and the only reason you would are these two reasons: because player is underperforming, attitude issues, whatever it is, and the other option would be to give someone some experience on stage. And because there's so many more narrow reasons, it feels like, and because like I said, you're probably way more concerned about your starting roster than like developing talent in it, like I think a lot of orgs are, that it has become synonymous, like a substitution has become synonymous with a bad thing.
Yeah, and it's very easy to assume. And correct me if I'm wrong. Like back in season 4 or season 5, when we were initially like in the early days of LCS, like when people were actually getting benched, it usually tended to be more of a team decision rather than judgment coming up from on high, or the head coach says, "Oh, we're going to bench this guy and start this guy." Like, am I correct?
Pretty much. I mean, at least early on, I mean, like I was one of the first people to be staff. Like there were not many people back then, so like everything was player run. And then even for like example, Piglet situation that we were part of, like that wasn't just like me and Peter Zhang being like, let's do this. It was a lot of players having issues and feeling like you had to do something. Hence the term breaking point that they stuck with for the second one that I was not a part of. But like I think a lot of the times, it's, at least when I was coaching, it was not like an on high decision. It was very much like a, hey, this is, you're as the, not necessarily leaders in like a importance perspective, but like at least in terms of the people organizing a lot of things, you're the ones who are seemingly making the decisions, and sometimes you're doing that to protect players from other players' opinions, so that way that bridge can be mended better in the future. If you don't have to say like, well, this player thinks you're playing like shit, so
it's very easy to come to that conclusion, because now since usually most of these benchings tend to be a team decision, now it's generally the team essentially getting together and saying that, hey, we don't want to play with this person anymore. And it's very hard to, rebuild that trust after it's kind of been broken.
Right. I mean, that's one of the things that I'll say from the outside looking in at the TL situation, for example, or even the C9 one. Like, I don't know really why these players were benched. Like, it could be that coaching had an issue and the staff didn't like some things and made these decisions, or it could be that Jatt is tanking the Heat, for example, because it was more of a team decision. And same way with the the C9 coaching staff being like, well, we're not going to say anything publicly really other than like one Max Waldo thing that was shown in that one video, you know? And this way people don't have to worry about public perception or even sometimes, you know, interpersonal conversations that would happen if you started to air what went down and why X person was benched.
All right, Jensen, it's your time. What do you think of this?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree the stigma around it is really bad usually. I mean, I was a part of getting benched myself once, and I mean, when it happened to me, like, it for sure like breached trust. I think the reason like for it to happen has to be like, you know, really valid, and there has to be like, I guess, warning signs that like things are not working out, and it has to like, just from like an ideal situation, right? Like there has to be like, if something is not working out, it has to be talked about that like, hey, like these things aren't getting better, like we need to work on these things because it's serious. And then if it doesn't get better, then I think it warrants a benching, or if you want to put it nicer, a promoting for the academy player.
That's the new spin they always try to put on it these days, by the way. It's like they don't talk about the LCS player that's getting benched, they talk about the academy player that's getting promoted.
Yeah. But I mean, I think it's justified if like an academy player is playing really, really well. But I think it's also rare that academy players are better than the starting LCS players. Because I mean, if you look at the teams or like the rosters, they're usually like pretty stacked with like a lot of like really, really good players. So usually, if a benching or something were to happen, I would imagine it would be like if the person or player has problems of some kind. And that's when the academy players only really get a chance, which is, I guess, kind of by luck in some situations. But yeah, it's.
What do you?
I think
okay.
a lot of it.
Well,
I was going to ask Jensen, what Mark? Fine, go for it.
No. You can go. I'll go after.
I was going to ask. We are now in a system wherein your spring split record carries over to summer. The top 8 teams make it into playoffs, and then there's a double elim bracket in those playoffs. And so I guess like I worry. I'm curious. One, is there a world where like people put too much emphasis on winning or losing, or the places where people are in the rankings, especially in the beginning of summer, because it doesn't matter that much as long as you are the better team come playoffs. And you know, on that end, if Jack came to you at the start of summer and said like to all the players on the team, like, hey, each of you, there's going to be like a Friday that you don't play, or 2 Fridays that you don't play, or maybe they pick it based off of the team that they're facing each week or something like that. But like every week there's at least one game wherein like there's a player that's subbed in or whatever. Would that just be the worst thing in the world? I mean, it might be. I'm asking honestly because maybe you're hearing that and that sounds disgusting to you and you want to vomit. But I'm just kind of curious.
I mean, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but I think the progress you make as a team, you learn the most on the LCS days. I think, but I do think if like an academy player has been playing outstandingly, they deserve a chance, in my opinion. But there would also have to be a problem with the main starter, I think, for it to really be justified, unless like, you know, like it's literally like Faker in academy who's just like, you know, smurfing every game and is clearly like better than his peers. Then I think it makes sense. You should field the best starting roster.
People in Twitch chat using the word competitive integrity, guys. I don't think you know what that word means when you use it. I guess it sounds like from your perspective, and sorry, Mark, I'm just going to say this. It sounds like from your perspective, there's no way to fix this. Like, because you're mentioning even in this scenario, it should only be done when the starter is having some sort of performance issue. So it's just sort of like we're just doomed to this circle of like you should never see a player in the LCS unless
I think if an academy player is really outstanding and the starter on the main team is not performing up to his peers, then why not? Then
Gotcha.
it should happen for sure. But I think my point was that mostly, I think in most cases, the LCS players are better than the academy players. So it is rare that it would happen unless there's like actual issues. But there will be some outliers, right? Like some academy players could be better than the LCS starters, and then they should get a chance. Like there's no reason not to. But the reason not to, I guess, is it has a really bad stigma that you like get, I guess, benched, right? So it's very risky to do.
I just think it'd be cool if we could get away from that stigma, because again, like these games are they matter so much less now. They matter, and you learn a lot from them, but like,
I mean, on the stigma point, like I feel like with the way Immortals properly communicated that, like, hey, this is not a punishment for insanity. Pretty's been playing well. We want to use him. Like, I felt like that was not. I don't think anyone looked at that and was like, man, insanity sucks, and this is why they're doing it. Like, I think as long as the org does a good job communicating it, I don't really think that stigma exists. I just think that it happens so rarely that you just don't even think about those instances. Like, I'm trying to think of another time when this promotion thing happened.
Well, that was way back. Remember when C9 and like promoted their academy team? I think they played against Golden Guardians, and then like Keith ended up getting a double kill and carrying that game. This was like back season 9. Remember that? They played their academy team in the LCS one time.
Well, that was kind of just for fun, I think, right?
I mean, it still can be considered essentially a reward for the academy team. Like, hey, you guys have been doing a great job, so we'll reward you with some stage time.
Yeah,
But
that's
a
exactly my
bit
point.
different, right? Than an actual promotion.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we're talking about like total, like you're just the permanent starter now. It can be in any context, whether it's, hey, we're allowing you to get some stage experience versus, hey, we want you to be the full-time starter. And it can go the other way too. Like, say if we have like a bottom team and you're definitely not going to go anywhere this split, like, is it going to hurt for them to try out some of your academy guys and just essentially just see what you have? I know a lot of tanking teams in the traditional sports do that.
That's definitely one that I feel like definitely feels bad for pro players. But if I was in a GMing/coaching position and we were like, 9th, 10th place, I would probably try players on stage and try and communicate to the starters that we signed at the start of the year that, like, hey, this is not indicative against you guys. It's just like, we're not winning worlds. We're not going to worlds. We're not probably winning a championship. But people like are humans, and they're going to have thoughts about that. Which does circle back to one of the things I did want to pick Jensen's brain about a little bit, because he talked about like when he went through his situation with Cloud9 back then, that there was a bit of a breach of trust, it felt like, and not giving ample warning. If the community and some people had the opinion that like, but it fired you up, right? Do you feel like there was any component of that where the almost negative feelings and connotations that came with it did inspire better play?
I don't think so. I think, having like a one-on-one talk where it's like, like if you don't improve on these things, like we will have to like make changes regarding you or like bench you potentially. I think that would like pretty much give the same message, but like wouldn't breach the trust, right? Because like the only thing it did to me was like, okay, like I need to make the best out of this year and then I'm out. Like that's kind of like the message I got from it.
TomShoe, thank you so much for the call. Anything you want to shout out before we go on to the next caller?
I didn't even get to talk about Yasui. What the fuck?
Well, this is your moment.
Okay. Well, two things. First of all, like I want to go back to that previous
give you
take
2
about
minutes.
how players have no personality, and yeah, they would have some personality if you didn't lose your fucking mind over every little bit of banter. Like, it's like, are you serious? Like, you can't make a joke or like say any player is bad anymore without the fans of that specific team like acting like you basically burned down their village. Like,
the longer you talk about somebody
killed
else's take,
their
I'm
children.
going to subtract time from you. So
killed their children and like friggin' salted their land. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. Like, maybe
down
if you
to a minute
didn't
and
freak the
45.
fuck out, they wouldn't even do it. Okay,
9.
so how about fucking Yasui and how he absolutely, and he went out there and he looked like he belonged, and it was freaking fantastic to watch. I want to give a shout out to all the Yasui stands out there. Like, I don't need to name names. Like, you know who you are, and I appreciate all of you. And but I know like some of those games looked a little rough, but I want you to know that they weren't his fault. Like some of those level ones were pretty rough. Like, and I know one game was from like Dardoch running it down, and the other one was from like the I think it
Jensen,
was
how
that,
do you
that
think
weird
Yasui
level
played
1
this
lane
weekend?
swap. He was fucking amazing. I mean, what do you mean?
Hey, Jensen, what have you scrimmed against Yasui? You quaking in your boots?
Yasui sucks. Let's move on.
Okay,
No,
TomShoe, thank you so much for the call.
He doesn't. No,
We'll catch you
Jensen
next time.
doesn't know anything.
Jensen has
Believe
spoken. Okay. All right. Thank you for the call. Mark's off to grab the last caller. Where were we? Boater Michael, thank you for the 31 months. Dr. Tony for the tier 2. Cowardly Fool. Rackaway. Le Crusette Fatila. Ollie 1 for the 18 months. Penetration. Arvigs. Hikari. 100 Talkpod, thank you for the raid. And we got our next caller here, our last caller. Tom S. Not to be confused with TomShoe, I assume. Tom S., where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Auckland, New Zealand.
Auckland, New Zealand. Okay. If this is actually TomShoe on a separate Discord account, you've mastered the accent. I'm very impressed. What do you want to talk about on the show?
Yeah, so I had a question for Jensen. I wanted to ask him, who are the players that he's played with that have helped him the most improve in his career, and who made the biggest impact on him in his career, like kind of combined?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Player that has impacted me the most.
Impact?
I guess teammates, sorry.
That's a hard one, actually.
I mean, I like both, actually. Teammate and competition, you know?
Well, for competition, it would for sure be Bjergsen. I think that's an easy one. He was always the most consistent, and yeah, you could always learn something. And for teammate, man, that's a
do
hard
we need
one.
to not include your current teammates just to make sure that you stay on good terms with those guys? We can exclude the current 4 if that helps. Because I do see Core JJ in the chat, so I'm a little.
He's lurking.
Core JJ. Oh, it's Core JJ. Of course, it's Core JJ.
Excluding the current ones.
Okay. Excluding the current ones. I mean, it'll probably have to be a jungler, I think, because those are like the ones I work the most with. Unless, yeah. I'd probably say Blabber. Yeah.
That's interesting. How much, so like when he first started coming onto the scene, you know, like a lot of people, and part of it was I think the mic checks that C9 put out about like him being a brain off player and just like taking fights. Do you think that was ever a fair characterization of him? Like, did he grow from that, or was that mostly just memes that like took too much root?
I think there was some truth to it. Like, he'd play Kindred, and like, normally when you think of Kindred, right, it's like, you have like Braum or something, and Braum goes in first, but he would always be the guy to like start the fights, and
yeah,
it kind of gave me like a new perspective on like how you just could play League of Legends in general. Anyone can actually just start the fight if you see the angles, and yeah, I mean, he was crazy, but it was a good crazy.
There's always a lot of talk about. It's like interesting hearing you say that because it feels like everyone always talks about how passive NA plays, and NA's got a bunch of passive players compared to other regions and stuff like that. So I'm wondering if you said like he kind of gave you the perspective anybody could pick the fight. Like, do you think he kind of stands alone, or is one of the few people in North America who's willing to play maybe as aggressive as some of these other regions have players playing? Like, is that part of it? Is he just like playing League as aggressively as perhaps an LPL or LEC team?
I mean, he is Chinese, right? So there's got to be something to it there. I don't really know. I mean, yeah, it's he is a guy that just is more crazy than other players in NA for sure. Yeah. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but it's fun always.
Yeah.
You kind of made it seem like it had to be a jungler when you're talking about person you learned the most with, because how closely you played. Do you think like in general players don't help each other like obviously when you're in a VOD review and people are talking about we should do this, we should do that, you're learning macro, but individually not much like that you're picking up from teammates, given that none of them are mid laners?
I mean, I don't want to sound like too arrogant, but I feel like as a mid laner you kind of have to understand the map the most or the best to really play mid lane. So I think it's hard for me to like really like learn new things about other lanes that can actually like benefit me, right? Like, I mean, I could learn stuff about like how like certain matchups, like small details work, but really, I don't really need to know those things. I just need to know like, oh, when can we dive top? Like, when are the waves gonna stack? Like, I just need to know like matchup things once the game starts. There's not really like concepts about like top lane or bot lane that I really need to learn. So it's only really related to jungle, or maybe even supports, right? Like knowing when support can help me or we can do things together. Those are like only the really big things. But I think mid laners are most connected to junglers, and that's just the thing you have to understand the most.
And there's nobody who ever has sort of in VOD reviews or outside like talking about macro like, oh, this is the way we can play the game, or like here's how we can change this. I mean, I remember we were talking earlier that caller shouted out the Worlds performance you guys had, and I remember, was it Vitality, the team that you guys played against that was playing really aggressive, that like kind of changed the way that you guys played? Like, I don't know if there have been moments like that where you've had somebody on your team who is able to just say like, who helps the team play in a wildly different way, not just because of their mechanics or them picking fights like Blabber, but also just like, no, here's like the plan, or here's the comp, or here's like the way we're going to approach these matches. Maybe it just doesn't work like that.
There's for sure like different like things or concepts I've picked up from different teammates. For example, Core, like when he came over to NA, like he would like tell us about the concepts he learned and how to do those things. So I mean, for sure, there's things that I picked up from different teammates just overall. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to really remember like the big ones that really stand out, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's a good question. I appreciate your answer. We don't need to spend too much more time on it since I know that you've been here for quite some time, and I really appreciate it. Tom, is there anything you want to shout out before we wrap up the show?
Just thanks to you guys, and thanks to Jensen. I actually met both you guys in 2018 when I went to watch LCS at the studio. And I saw Jensen after the game. He just picked Zilean, and he was like my one trick, and I asked him, what can you teach me about Zilean? And he just said, just land your bombs. And that was like, it got me a scholarship to university playing mid lane, and I basically one trick Zilean that whole time. So
wait,
I'm going to give it to him.
He Korean advised you into getting a college scholarship?
Yep.
Damn.
Yep.
This sounds
just
like
land bombs. It's actually the best strat. Just land bombs and land ult. That's just like as somebody's gonna die. That's like the two strats.
Wow! Congratulations.
Yeah. Congrats.
Thanks.
If you had that power, Jensen, you should have told him something even more useful, like just become a surgeon. Become a lawyer.
Imagine what our caller could have achieved had you given him even more.
Yeah, my bad.
No.
You couldn't have given me any advice on any more exciting champion than Zilean,
eh? Thanks so much, Tom, for the call. Congratulations on the scholarship. Years later.
Cheers, guys.
See ya.
Bye.
Oh,
that's awesome.
Twitch chat had a good point. You should have given him the Game Fuel Caller of the Night.
True. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll retroactively give that to him. Here we go. I'll play it on screen. I love that somebody came up with that idea. Oh wait, it's not that. Where is it? Hello? Okay, well, it played at the start. It played earlier in the day. I don't know why it's being a brat now, but we're gonna... There we go. We're gonna give him Game Fuel Victory Caller. Oh wait, he's in New Zealand.
Is that now Oops?
Thanks a lot, Mark. I knew there was a reason.
Undo.
I'll figure out a way to
end the show. Get us out. It didn't happen.
Thanks so much to Jensen for coming on the show. Mark, first off, what do you want to shout out?
Nothing.
Okay. Jensen, how about you? What do you want to shout out? How was the show for you?
It was good. It was fun, interesting. Learned a lot of things, and yeah.
What did you learn?
It's too much. I can't tell you, Travis.
Okay, very good.
He needs time to process.
Well, thank you for sticking around the whole time. I was waiting to get a message from you at some point in time, being like, I gotta go, but you suck through like a trooper. For me, everyone, shout out Rift Reaction. We are doing some great stuff on that show. If you want something a little shorter with some audio to listen to after you've completed this show, it's all exclusively on Spotify with me and Emily Rand. Our run it this week is about King and how he's doing compared to Sven, which I think will be a fun one to look at some of the stats on after the first couple of weeks. And thanks again to Jensen. It was awesome having you on the show, so I really do appreciate it. For everyone else,
Yeah.
this has been Hotline League, and we'll catch you next week.